like to thank everyone for joining us today. We truly appreciate it. I am here with the panel of superstars here. To my right, we have Mr. Duke the Dumpster Droese.
Mr.
Barry Horowitz.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Hughes. And last but certainly not least, Mike McGuirk. For anyone joining us, please come right in, take a seat. So we're going to have a nice conversation here today, and I have some guiding questions, but we can let this be a little more organic, and if you have questions for each other, or if the audience has questions, please just let us know. Very informal. So what I'd like to start out with first is the question, how did you first discover pro wrestling? And I'm going to hit that one over to Mike McGuirk.
I didn't have a choice. I was born into this business, so that's my first taste of it. From the time that I was taken to an arena when I was younger, and I told a story last night that is the truth. I watched these women in the ring, I'd watched these performers, but when they brought a wrestling bear, that's when I was like, I'm in. So that was the first time I was really inside the ring. The bear won, by the way.
Well, you know, when I was growing up, I'm from Kansas City, so in Kansas City territory, you know, NWA, a lot of the stars came through there. I'm talking from, you know, Bulldog Bob Brown to Andre the Giant to Ric Flair, you name it. Well, anyway, I was about 9, and I was wrestling came on about 8 o'clock in the evening at night. And back then, it was black and white. The TV was black and white. And I remember seeing this match. It was Rufus R. Jones and Harley Race. And I watched this match. And they got a little color in it. But the bug that bit me out of that TV is when I saw them have that wrestling match they had. And from that point on, I was like, that's what I want to do. And I went through my high school and college and played football and all that. And I could have went pro, but I didn't want to play pro football. I wanted to be a professional wrestler. Now, my mom was pissed when I told her I did not want to play pro ball. I wanted to be a professional wrestler because I had a plan. I was like, you know, I got my gear and everything way before I got out of college. I bought my boots, my tights, hadn't even found a trainer yet. Yeah, you understand? So I already had my mind made up to be a wrestler. Now, when I got done with college, the Lord blessed me with, you know, Bob Geigel and Sonny Myers. They trained me, and that's why I'm sitting here today.
Cool. And there was Pat O'Connor.
Yeah, you got Pat. Yeah. Oh yeah, thank you so much. Because Pat loved me. Matter of fact, he got me over. Me and a few other people. I think the Nasty Boys was on the tour. Steve Regal was on the tour. My first overseas tour, we went to New Zealand, and Pat O'Connor got me over there in New Zealand because him and Geico were like this, because they owned part of the territory. And so, I mean, you know, I love the business, so that's the reason why I got in the business from that match I saw with Harley Race and Rufus R. Jones on TV.
Wow. My parents and I moved in a new house in St. Petersburg, Florida, where I'm from, and schooled there and wrestled there. And you know, when you move in a new house, I don't know how it is nowadays, but the furniture, the truck isn't there yet. So you put up a box and put the TV on top of it, and you're ordering pizza while you're waiting for different things to happen. Yeah. Well, it did happen. Here I am, and I'm going, it's after 7, Florida Championship Wrestling on WTOG, Channel 44 in Tampa, every Saturday at 7 with Gordon Soley. And I'm watching Mr. Clean against Thunderbolt Patterson. And I'm mesmerized. I'm 13. Now, I'm sure, and I've did it, and I'm sure everybody up here's did it, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be this. My first thing ever was a magician. And I did all right. I could still do sleight of hand and stuff when I put my mind to it, but that one did disappear. This one was rock solid. I said, that's what I'm doing. Right away, started training with the weights, went to the youth center and took wrestling lessons, became on their team, learned different things about amateur wrestling, progressed from junior high, high school, and just kept on going. I thought that was the building blocks, the resume, especially when I heard hearsay about Eddie Graham, Mike Graham. They love guys like that. See, it's almost like a Stu Hart situation. Same thing, same cut from the same cloth. So I pursued that, and that's, I mean, I was saying last night, from there, it was like up climbing everything. And I had to be careful because of, you're going down to the Sportatorium in Tampa, and you start shooting off your mouth, which I would not do, Eddie's gonna throw you in there with Bob Roop, and then it's lights out in about 10 seconds. I mean, you're getting stretched and possibly a broken leg from Matsuda, Roop, or whatnot, especially if you say you could go. No, you can't go. You don't even know what go means. But Bob Roop does. So I never ventured that. One time, I did go to the Sportatorium, and I seen Mike Graham come out of his car, and he had this huge bag. And I think he went and got lunch for all the guys. Later, I realized that's what he did, and I asked him, and I was probably 185, and he says, well, you look pretty good. He says, he didn't say a tryout or nothing. He really didn't, there's people out there. He probably wants to get inside. He's got to go over TV, because TV's every Wednesday. And then from there, they went to Miami. But fast forwarding everything and meeting Malenko and getting trained, I do my ultimate dream. I'm at that Sportatorium. I'm there and I'm going, is this what the locker room looks like? I thought it was, fabulous. And I'm going, this little studio. And then meeting Gordon Soley and his sons. And I'm going, holy cow. I said, I'm here. And not only am I here, I'm traveling to the places and working at the buildings that I went to when I was 12 or 13. The Bayfront Center in St. Petersburg. I mean, iconic building. The Armory. I thought, I've got to work there, but it was closed then. It was open, closed, and I did get to work there for a couple of independent groups, which was awesome. I finally got into that building. But, yeah, it was just, and then the next big step, changing my name to Jack Hart, and the reason I was a mark for Jack Briscoe, and Mike Graham, and Don Morocco, and Orton Jr., all were in that circle. I love their style of wrestling, and I said, my name's Jack Briscoe. I said, Jack Briscoe won the Florida title. I said, I don't know where this is going, but I would never put it over, say nothing, or act starstruck, and it happened. I get a push. I'm beating Mike Graham for the Florida title at the Spartan Sports Center, the University of Tampa, his hometown. And let me tell you something. I've worked with a ton of baby faces in this business. Top 5, top 3, Mike Graham. I have never seen anybody that patient with a heel. Never lost his temper. So it's like going for a smooth sail. And I've only worked with him a few times. And incredible, respectful. I think it was my background and everything, because when he first introduced me to his dad, he goes, hey, Dad, meet Jack Hart. This was in Miami. It's the last time I saw Eddie Graham, by the way. And he goes, yeah, he's telling me that we and Jerry and Jack Briscoe came to his school to do a wrestling seminar to the wrestling team. Is he saying we're old? I like going, oh, crap. You're doing this in front of your dad? Really? I just got here. But it was just a big rib. But anyway, there's many more, but my dream did come true. So not only it came true, first and foremost, professional wrestler, but secondly, living out my dream in my home. That doesn't happen. The only people I mentioned was Brian Blair, Steve Kern, I'm sure there's others, but not many. So, yeah, it was really cool and humbling.
How did you first discover pro wrestling?
My story's actually similar to Barry's. I grew up in Florida, and I grew up on championship wrestling from Florida during the years of, Kevin Sullivan and Blackjack Mulligan and those great feuds, and Jack Hart was there too. And I just grew up watching it every Wednesday. I went and watched the house show at Miami Beach Convention Center. I was wrestling in high school. I was very interested in professional wrestling, but the moment, that aha moment where I actually said I want to be a professional wrestler was WrestleMania 1. They had it, there was no pay-per-view then. It was on closed circuit TV at the Miami Beach Convention Center on a big screen, and me and my dad went and watched it. I was still in high school. And it was something so different, and the hype behind Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, that match got me. And I said, that is what I want to do. I want to be a professional wrestler. And from that point forward, I went about learning, finding out where the local wrestling school was, and I started while I was still in high school. But yeah, and I actually wrestled in the Sportatorium once in Tampa. Yeah, that with the low ceiling,
Yes.
You walk in there, you're like, wow. But yeah, before they moved it all up to Atlanta and everything. But yeah, that's kind of how I broke in, and that aha moment was WrestleMania 1 for me, for sure.
That's amazing. Thank you for taking us through kind of how you got started. And speaking of the start, Mike, would you be able to start us off with taking us back to your WWF debut? Walk us through that day and what you were feeling.
Do you mean the debut as far as going on television? Because what people don't really know that at the time that Vince Sr. passed away, Vince Jr. was going worldwide. We were already getting Madison Square Network, and then we had WTBS, but Vince was going through everybody's territory. And he didn't have the rings and the equipment, obviously, that he does now. So there was a guy in the office named Terry Garvin that was part of the Garvin brothers, legendary, and they started making calls. And one of them was to my folks and was asking if we had a wrestling ring. Just so happened we had one, and that was all I needed. It was Vince was coming in for a show, and they needed a wrestling ring. And obviously my dad was out of the business at the time, and he had signed my mom and dad had signed a no-compete clause with his former partner, but I didn't. And I was like, tell Terry, because I'd known Terry growing up and noticing cute little Jimmy Garvin, which was he was cute. He was, the young kid, and because there was Ronnie and Terry, and then so I'm like, yeah. And there was still one fellow that had worked for my folks that I knew that could put up the ring. I could drive it and get it there, but the rest of it, my dad's ring was an 18-foot square, free suspension ring with 2x12 by 18 boards for the floor. The guys loved it because it was a bouncy ring, and then you had steel cable ropes that would, if you didn't know when the guys would hit it, it would throw you either through to your face because of the spring in it, but that was a strong ring. And so I knew I had that going for me, and my first show was in Oklahoma City. And believe it or not, when this was happening and Vince was just going everywhere, you had local promotions. As I said, my dad and mom were out of it, but Bill still had Mid-South. They were not friendly towards that. There was a ring that had arrived before mine did, and it was destined to fail. And the only thing that I knew is I'm going to get my money, and this ring's got to go. And I happen to know the building manager in Oklahoma City. And I explained to him, I said, I don't know who these people are, but get rid of them because my ring's coming in. In my mind, being a promoter's daughter, you have to have a wrestling ring or there's no show. And it cannot fail. And I think that was probably somebody who ever came in there, it was set to fail. And so we got rid of that. I had my wrestling ring got up. The first person that I met was Pat Patterson. I was totally in awe. But here these guys, in my mind, here these guys are flying in. They know nothing about Oklahoma City. They just are prepared, hopefully, that ring is going to be there. That was my duty. So that's how that started, and I did that continuously for 3 years. So that was 1984. I went as far as Minot, North Dakota. I went as far west as Albuquerque, and I made it down to the Florida territory with the ring. And this was, again, before Vince was able to have any of the rings. So there'd be times that I would be out on the road providing a ring, and again, I would grab the jackets. I would learn, of course, when you're with the ring, you're there before everybody, and you're there after everybody. So I would make sure that the music was right, because this is professional. This is not any Mickey Mouse stuff. And I was getting paid fine for it. These guys didn't come in here to have it all messed up. And surely to goodness, Blackjack Lanza, who carried a clipboard all the time, that I knew that was like, oh my God. Because I could see him coming with that clipboard, and I'm like, everything okay? And just everything was right. Because no telling where they had come from. They depended on whoever was holding that ring, that they had it all together so they could do their job. So I did that for 3 years, and eventually, because this was 1986 now, we'll go forward. I was in Memphis, Tennessee. I was taken, my dad was still alive, and so any chance that I could get, we would rent like one of these little RVs, and so I could pull the ring and I could have my dad with me, because I wanted to take him back to the dressing room and be with the guys. This was a big show in Memphis. Andre was there, Moolah was there, all these people that I grew up with, which Moolah said, please don't say that around everybody, that makes me look old. So it's like, yeah, I remember you. But anyway, there was a guy there, and as Vince was starting out, your local advertising would be either your radio, your television, your DJ, whatever, and he'd get up in the ring. And this one time, big sold-out crowd, and this guy was, whoop, wow, yeah. And here comes Jack Lanza with a clipboard. Steam was coming out of it. Get him out of here. So I'm sitting there at the ringside table, all ready to pick up my job and the jackets, and he turns to me and he goes, you're announcing. And I just looked at him, and he goes, well, surely to God you've sat in the ringside. I go, I didn't sit in ringside. Those were paying customers. And I sure as heck didn't even begin to know about announcing. I had a degree in broadcasting, but not in the ring. That's something that I was always set in awe of because of what these guys do. Just amazing. It's beyond that. It's what they do with their bodies and the story they tell. And what the old guys do now, what they used to do is you went by the temperature of the crowd. So if whatever they were doing and it wasn't working. So anyway, we got rid of him. I got in there. Daddy was there. I put him in the dressing room, and then he came out. And so it was Memphis, Tennessee. On my mom's birthday, September 12th, 1986, was my first shot at doing the announcing. Took Vince a couple of years to get. It has to be Vince's idea. So as we all know, and so I worked with all the agents. It began the more that I picked up more shows, and that they didn't use any local announcer. And then too, Lanza would say no. I want her. So that got word to the office, and it kind of grew into that. But still, it was not Vince's idea. He had a different idea when he sent me to Houston to work with the Duke of Dorchester and Bruce Pritchard. And so that was color commentary. And then it just kind of grew from there. So I know I went too long, but I thought I'd kind of tell you it just didn't happen, and there was not a tryout or anything like that. Maybe a 3-year tryout, something like that, but sure, that's how it happened.
Yeah.
So,
So the question was, what was that question again?
what was that question? I can't remember.
Oh, okay, that was easy. Okay, all right. I figured it was around that neighborhood. Well, my WWF debut was in Augusta, Georgia. I had got a hit from Sergeant Slaughter. I was over in Puerto Rico because I used to go over there like every other weekend and work with Carlos Colon, Abdullah, and all them cats because they love to bleed. And I was pretty hot. I was in WCW, but then WWF called and they wanted to take a look at me. So I was in Puerto Rico and I come back to the hotel and I had light. My light was flashing on the messages on the phone, right? So I was like, I wonder who could this be? So I called the front desk. I said, how do I retrieve these messages? She goes, oh, you got to push this button. So I pushed the button, and it was Sergeant Slaughter. Left me a message saying that Vince is interested in looking at you. Can you be down in Augusta and such a date? So I called him right back when I heard the message, and he answered the phone. Hey, Sarge, how you doing? This is Curtis. I'm down in Puerto Rico. And he asked me, when do you think you'll be back? You know, I said, I'll be back Sunday. He goes, well, we're going to be in Georgia, such a date, I can't remember. And we need you to come on down, bring your gear, bring your stuff, and we want to take a look at you. And so I said, great. You know, I got off the phone and did a couple of backflips and praised the Lord and all that good stuff. And then when that day came, I went to Augusta. And when I got there, I had to meet up with J.J. Dillon and JR, who else was there I had to talk to, and Vince. So, you know, I went into because at these arenas, they usually have, Vince has an office in the arenas. So you go in the office and they talk to you and say, we like the way you work, blah, 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 blah. All right, you know, go get dressed and we're going to, you know, take a look at you. You know, the place is packed, 20,000 seat arena, sold to the gills, ain't an empty seat in the place. And so now here's the kicker to all this. Now in the back, I was like asking the other boys in the dressing room, you know, what I need to do out there to get a job, right? And they were ribbing me, of course. They was like, well, Curtis, you need to go out there and sell for the jobber, bump for the jobber. I mean, do all these things for the jobber. But I was trained a little better than that, you know. So I didn't fall for the okie doke, but I went out there and I did my thing. Now this first TV taping, you know, I went out there. I was in gimmick. I went out there and did my thing. I drop kicked. I did everything that they liked. And when I got done, I went back to the gorilla position. And so gorilla says, yeah, you know, go get dressed and meet Vince and JJ in the office. And so I went and got dressed. I put my street clothes back on, tucked my gimmick off, put my street clothes back on, went and visit with Vince and JJ and them, and we talked about some money. So apparently they're going to give me a job. So they said, all right, we're going to FedEx your information, the contract, whatever. We need you to go back in the dressing room and put your gear back on. We need to get you caught up to speed. So we're going to do about 3 or 4 TV tapings with you. So go get dressed and come back and get ready. And I went to the dressing room, got dressed. Now, when I was in the dressing room, these same guys that I asked, hey, man, what I need to do to get a job out there? I was like, so what happened? They say, so what Vince and them say? Did you get the gig? I was like, well, they told me to come in and put my stuff back on. They want to do my first TV taping. And I was like, so does that mean I got a job? So anyway, I go out there and I do these 3 tapings. And they say, go out there and get over, do your thing, get this Mr. Hughes guy over strong, and that's what I did every time I got in front of that television. And that night was my debut because they started taping me that night, and they never did that before. So, a lot of guys say, hey, man, Vince must like you. And I learned about Vince that he likes, guys that make him money. If you can draw, brother, he gonna push you. And he saw something in me, because I did, I was 300-something pounds doing drop kicks and big back drops and hitting the ropes and damn near go out to the fans. And it's funny when I watch it now, when I see my matches now, because hitting these ropes big as I was, man, if you were sitting in the first row, you thought I was gonna fall in your lap. But yeah, that night in Augusta was my debut in the WWF. Now, I was there 3 different times. So, I was there in 93, 96, 99. And I was with, they always put me with good talent. I was with, the second time I was there, they put me with Triple H as his butler, the bodyguard. And then the third time I was with Y2J as his bodyguard. So each time I went there, I always had a good spot. But Augusta was the first night that, my career really got the push that it needed, to get going like I wanted to go. So.
No. I just threw a little wrench there. What the heck? I never get to do that, but now I do. So anyway, is it my initial first or second? Or do you want right from the beginning my first debut for WWF? Okay. So I alluded to it last night that I called Monsoon at his house. And that's where he told me to come down to Allentown, PA, which wasn't a far drive. Drove down there with my girlfriend. And this is how green I am. I don't know what I'm doing. Nobody's helping me out. I park in front of the building and walk. I open up the doors, and there's thousands of people in there for a TV taping. I'm walking through them with my bag. How embarrassing. I said, oh, I've never did that ever again. Then I go through the curtain, and I'm overwhelmed with probably 50, 60 different wrestlers. Anybody you could think of was there. Shook everybody's hand, and I'll never forget this. I see Vince. You didn't see Vince walking around too much, Senior. Junior would walk around and he'd talk a little bit, but mostly to the main event guys at the time. And Monsoon comes up to me, Bob Bradley, which I think he went to, he wrestled in Texas maybe as Bob the Cat Bradley. He was in awe of Jimmy Snuka. He copied a lot of his mannerisms. And Jeff Craney, which I never knew what happened to him. I think he was from Philly or Pennsylvania. And Monsoon goes just like this. He looks at all 3 of us and he says, gentlemen, we don't need any superstars here. We have superstars. Bottom line is, do what you're told, sell and bump. I'm reading that. And that's what I did. My first match that night was Angela Mosca Sr. I'm 21 years old. I'm probably 205, maybe. And granted now, I've worked in the Indies in Florida, Sunbelt Wrestling and what have you for Malenko's. But now I'm encountering a different breed of wrestlers. These are accomplished. They've been around. They've been on the circuit a while. Mosca was stiff. And maybe it was just me. I didn't realize it. Or maybe he just was stiff. And then getting to know him down the years, and he worked for Crockett, he was stiff. He's just kind of a bully type spot picker, if you will, but he didn't hurt me. And I'm 21 years old. I'm going, hey, this is the wrestling business. He's breaking my arms. I'm not bleeding, no concussions. That's just part of the business. Dr. Death Steve Williams told me in Japan, he says, wrestling, Barry, is not ballet. If it was, everybody be a pro wrestler making money. So I'll never forget some of these words I hear from these guys. And the second match was more enjoyable. I'm wrestling the magnificent Morocco. This was awesome. And match was good, but two key things in this match that impressed me to this day. Number one, he put me in an abdominal stretch and laid down with it, which was a cool move, and I use it, and I was taught that. So I want to show these guys that I'm not just an enhancement guy. I could move and I could work. If you don't want me to, you'll block it. And Morocco blocked it. I mean, I went to move and I couldn't move. I mean, he had me tied. So I said, okay, I'll loosen up, and I guess he doesn't want me to reverse this or do anything else. So, and then he ends the match, and I could be wrong by saying this, so don't quote me. He is the originator of the tombstone pile driver, which was called the Asian spike or the Asiatic spike. The only difference is Don Morocco would lift you with one arm and give it to you. He held me like this and gave it to me. That's impressive. I mean, this man is a pro wrestler, a promo machine, a friggin' athlete, made nothing but money in Florida or everywhere he went. And I was told that they possibly were going to put the world title on him. But I don't know the reasoning. Maybe I do, but I just don't want to go into it. But well-deserved. And every time I would see him in the gym or anything, I could feel respect. And he was at I think it was the 95 Slammies in New York. And I was there, and I was up for an award, Shocker of the Year. And he just came up to me, and you could, he was sincere with me, like, you're doing good. Him and Johnny Rods. And that's pretty cool. It really is. So, yeah, that was it. Those two matches. But in 2 days, I would wrestle 6 times. And I mean, yeah, it was eye-opening, but I stem it up with, that's part of paying dues. I was in dues-paying mode. I wasn't a character, wasn't a heel. No psychology. That's the next level. Keep on going up until you get to the top of the house. And that took years. That's that.
Would you like to talk about your WWF debut?
Yeah, when I started wrestling for the WWF, well, let me back up a little bit. The reason I got a tryout, interestingly enough, is because I was wrestling down in Florida as the garbage man, Rocco Gibraltar, and I put together a promotional package of Rocco Gibraltar my plan was I was going to get in my 1978 Cadillac Coupe de Ville and drive around the country to the last remaining territories and try to get a job. But I ended up finding out reading the newspaper, that Vince McMahon was in Miami at the Miami Beach Convention Center at a NatP convention, a TV executive convention. And I had a friend that was a TV executive in South Florida at Channel 2, and he gave me his credentials, and I put on a suit, took my promotional package and put on his credentials, and I walked in there and walked right up to Vince and shook his hand and handed him the promo package and told him I wanted to work for him. And J.J. Dillon called me about a week later, and I'll never forget it because I was finishing up college at the University of Miami, and I had went out. All this stuff with Vince already happened, but on this particular night, I went out with the buddies and, drank quite a bit of alcohol. So I was hungover the next morning, and my phone started ringing, and I grabbed the phone and threw it across the room. Yeah. And it was my dad trying to call me because they had I had put my mom's phone number on there because, like I said, I was going to travel the country, and I was just leaving her address and phone number. And JJ called and left a message at my mom's house. And so my dad had to come over to my house and wake me up out of this hangover. And he says, "Does the name J.J. Dillon ring a bell?" And Mr. Hughes, you talk about that dance you did. I did the same dance. I was like, oh. And I called there, and he was in a meeting, and I was such a mark. I called like 5 more times, the poor secretary. But they brought me up for a tryout. Everything went well. I wrestled Reno Riggins, great wrestler. And they hired me, the same kind of deal. They sent the contract to the house and all that good stuff. But my very first day working for the World Wrestling Federation, they sent me out and they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to go out. Jerry the King Lawler is going to be standing there. He's going to interview you. But instead of interviewing you, he's going to act like you stink really bad, and he's going to put a clothespin on his nose. And I'm going, oh, okay. And they go, you dump trash on his head. I went, okay, fine, sounds good. I went out, we did that. I didn't think much of it. I just thought it was a funny thing to do. And then we came back to do Raw. The next TV, we were doing a live Raw. And they had me on the King's Court segment live. And we did this whole deal where Jerry the King Lawler was basically just berating me and yelling and screaming at me and telling me I couldn't get in his ring. So the deal was I was supposed to walk away, and he was going to jump me from behind, bing, bang, boom, start a nice little feud with Jerry the King Lawler right through the front door. And we were sitting in the back kind of talking about what we were going to do, and Jerry asked me, he goes, Duke, you think maybe it'd be okay if I hit you with your own garbage can after I jump you from behind? And I went, I'm fine with that. I go, should we, and remember, I'm brand new there. And I go, should we ask somebody? And Jerry goes, yeah. And he chose Jack Lanza to ask. And Jack goes, do it. It's live. So we did it. We went out there, and he hit me with the garbage can on live TV. And this is back when it was still trying to, it was family entertainment. Coming out of the 1980s, it was, geared towards kids and, like I said, family entertainment. And when I got back to the gorilla position, they were freaking out. But that's how the feud started, and I had a nice little run with Jerry Lawler, doing a lot of house shows and stuff like that. And it was a pleasure working with Jerry Lawler. I mean, it was so easy. I didn't have to do anything. He took all the bumps. But that was my introduction to when I first started working for the World Wrestling Federation. So.
Thank you all for sharing those amazing stories. And what we wanted to go to next is inspiration. Who was your inspiration going into the business?
In the wrestling business? Would it be in the wrestling business? Inspiration? Oh, God. I can't leave anybody out. From, Danny Hodge to Irish Mike Clancy, Dandy Jack Donovan and his redheaded Vern, the wife, Laverne, because she always had that purse that had something in it. And, the way that they walked, before Ric Flair had the walk, Dandy Jack Donovan could slick his hair back and do this walk. And I was like, oh my God, I love these. And then the bolo. I mean, I don't know, that went on for a long time because I knew him as Al Lovelock. Well, one time we came through the back, which never really happened. Daddy always went through the front, and we came through the back. Al Lovelock had his mask on, and he scared the bejesus out of me because he's like, what are you doing here? We don't allow little girls back here. And, just the inspiration of every character, of everybody, and then Ann Casey, the women wrestlers. God, I can't forget Moolah. Everybody was my inspiration. Every one of them. There was one that was Oni Wiki Wiki. Everybody had, their character, but they were real life people to me because I knew them on the other side. But when they got in the ring, they were, to myself, and I'd bring my friends, my girlfriends, if some of them would come, and get scared, but I'd be just like, I know them, and I know their family, but they were untouchable when they were in the ring. So the inspiration was every one of them. I didn't have any clue of that inspiration and where it would take me. I didn't have a plan that this is what I'm going to set out to do. I just knew I wanted to be, well, I'll take that back. I just knew I wanted to be a part of the wrestling business. So back in that day, I married one because I had the love for the business. If I couldn't be in that, then I married. Well, that didn't work out, but that yearning of still wanting to be a part of something that my dad had and loved, and to carry on his name, it meant something to me, a whole lot. And then that kind of presented itself, like I said, the ring, and then this, and it grew. And so the inspiration came from being a little girl and watching these guys, and the women. So yeah. And then there's Barry down there that all of you all are inspiration, but it's their personalities. I mean, when I got out of the business and went into regular life, I guess, I was like yearning to go back, because these are worldly, they travel, but they're worldly people. They know about respect, they know about family, and that's an inspiration in myself. But from any elected official, and I would come home to my mom, I'm like, these people, just out in the so-called business world, I said, what I left is far beyond what some of these people, yee-haws that are elected. But and it's true. I don't mean to offend anybody. We're here in a Q&A, and nobody's bridling this, so I'm just kind of telling you. This is where my love and my life is, a huge majority of it has been. So.
See, well, with me, like I said earlier, as a little bitty fella, back then they had like about 4 or 5 channels, see? And so from what I used to see, Harley and Bob Geigel and Sonny and Pat O'Connor and the Stomper. I can go down the list of wrestlers that I used to watch that inspired me to really want to do this stuff. But one in particular, 2 people that really inspired me to do it. And then once I got into business, and started getting trained and graduated to shows and things like that. Well, now I'm in the dressing room meeting all these big-time stars that was in this territory back when I was in Kansas City. And everybody came through Kansas City. I mean, if you was a wrestler back then, Kansas City was one of the big NWA territories. And I thank God I had the opportunity to start there, because I had the head guy of NWA, Bob Geigel, training me. See, he was the boss. He was the man. And then Sonny Myers, he was part of the company. He was a referee at the time because he was a worker. But all these people inspired me to want to do it, because then once I got in the presence of them, I was like, this is amazing. The building that they used to perform in, here I was in the same building getting trained. And then I'm meeting all these stars I used to watch on television. Now I'm in the dressing room with them. Now they're talking to me. Now they're telling me things, showing me the ropes, you might say, taking me on the road, showing me things, telling me things that I will need to know for my longevity in the world of professional wrestling. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity to meet these people, to teach me things for my career, and for me teaching other people the business. We're going to get to that in a minute. But names, you know, that inspired me would be, you know, Bob Geigel, Holly Race, Rufus R. Jones, Pat O'Connor, Bulldog Bob Brown. I mean, I can go on and on. And these guys, they were in their 50s, and they were taking bumps and still working back then. You know what I'm saying? So that, you know, when I got into years of being in the business, and then that puts me in that mindset of when those guys were like almost retiring, but they were still in the game. You understand? But a lot of them wasn't busted up like a lot of guys are today because they didn't know what they were doing. These cats today, they don't know what they're doing. That's why they half of them crippled. You know what I mean? But you know, I teach safe professional wrestling because you got to learn that stuff. I mean, you can't just get in the ring and do anything. You ain't gonna last. You know. But inspiration, man, was from all those guys that paved the way for me to do what I'm doing for over 30 years. And I'm glad I got the chance to hang out with all those cats, man, because a lot of them ain't here no more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I first wanted to piggyback off of Mr. Hughes. First of all, Rufus R. Jones is the man. I traveled with him and Jimmy Valiant for 1 year when Tommy, referee in Charlotte, I always forget his last name, but what a learning experience. There's no ribbing, and if there is, it's mild. I knew where to stop, the money, how to save money, to this day, I saw Jimmy Valiant for the first time in over 20 years at Hazard Fest last year, and I told him what he told me this little thing, just a trade secret, something, you know, and I reminded him. I don't know if he remembered or not. I didn't care. I wanted him to know that I didn't forget. And then, of course, Rufus, and then Rufus's son, Slick, the ultimate tall manager. But what a great guy. I've traveled with him in One Man Gang, my second stint in WWF, and what a pleasure. Now, the other two things that attracted my attention that Mr. Hughes said was Sonny. He didn't finish it, and I got nervous. So then he said Myers, then I felt better. Anyway, and then getting back to the I don't know how you would put it as far as what he said about, you said about people working and crippling. Yeah, I'm not into 20 super kicks into the face and you make a comeback and beat me with a schoolboy. See, that's called no psychology. Okay? I know when the super kick was relevant. It's a high spot. It's a hip toss. And you ruined it. And if you think that's cool and you think I'm old school, well, I got a bad leg and I'll still stretch you. So I'll introduce you to the Carl Gotch crooked head scissor, which I still don't know how to do. I just know it's a Jody Malenko special, and if you're in it, there's going to be lights out. Now, real easy. Jack Briscoe, Mike Graham, Don Morocco, and Bob Orton Jr. There it is, right there. I'm going to throw Dick Slater in there too. But those four are my main. I'm throwing Dick Slater in there just because he's an icon in Florida, and I didn't realize how great of a worker he is. Kind of mimicked Terry Funk a little bit too much at his later career, but legit tough guy. Legit. Like entering tough man contests, him and Orton Jr. and winning. That's impressive right there. Now, of course, if you want to talk about the wrestler, I mean, they're legit wrestlers, but come on, Jack Briscoe's the king. AAU, NCAA champion. I mean, he's did it all. So that's my inspirations.
And what school was that he was out of, Mr. Barry? Yes, Oklahoma State.
I think it was Oklahoma State, yeah.
Oklahoma State, go Cowboys.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
bet.
I got to admit, a lot of good wrestlers came out of Oklahoma State.
She said, go, I said, go Wildcats, by God. Go Wildcats.
I just say,
Big-time champions, man.
I just say go Knowles.
Hurricanes.
We're Rhode Island, it's the Rams.
Your inspiration?
It's real easy to answer for me. And when I was growing up, watching in the 80s and coming up in the business in the late 80s when I started, Ric Flair and especially the Road Warriors, I kind of modeled a lot of what I did. I stole a lot of the Road Warrior stuff, power slams, press slams, and all that good stuff. But those were the main two inspirations for me, Ric Flair and the Road Warriors. And I had the opportunity to meet Joe a few years ago before he passed at one of these conventions. Such a nice guy, and he's definitely missed, but such a nice guy. But yeah, those were my inspirations.
Thank you. So I have a couple of more pointed questions. And Mr. Hughes, you were talking about education, and I would like you to speak about your school.
Well, I've been in the business over 30 years, and so, I have accumulated a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, right? And like Barry said earlier, man, we go on the road a lot through the years. Okay, so you learn a lot of things. You ride with a lot of different boys. You do a lot of different things. As a young guy, I was traveling with superstar veterans. Like Harley and like I said, Rufus and Bob Brown, people like that. These are the old timers that were pretty much there when territories were strong. You know what I'm saying? So I came in right at the tail end of the territories. So I got a taste of that. You know what I'm saying? And so I had all this wisdom and knowledge, and from being in AWA, NWA, WCW, WWF, UWF. I didn't, been with a lot of companies and wrestled a lot of superstars and main events and stuff like that. So I had a lot to offer to young people, you know what I'm saying? But my most important thing was teaching kids about safety in the ring instead of just getting in there and doing a bunch of nothing. I teach psychology. I show you pretty much every aspect of the wrestling game. And that's why there's so many superstars that I've trained that are in all the major companies, from WWF to AEW to Impact to NWA. Is there any more? Because they're everywhere. You understand? And the reason why they're there, because you interviewed one of them, Apollo Crews. Yeah. Thank you for that great interview, honey. And she put me over too, which is true. I mean, I am a WWF superstar. So, and you were interviewing one of my former trainees, you see. And so you made it look perfect. You understand? And some people don't do that. They're a little jealous. You got this guy and that guy and that guy. I don't care. I just want to teach people old school wrestling that got us to this point. If you don't teach kids the old school style that got us to this point, ain't nobody gonna buy no ticket. And that's the mentality that I use when I teach people. If you don't teach these kids how to perform in front of crowds of people, the psychology knowledge, people are not going to buy no ticket to come watch you. I don't care what you're doing. If you don't teach these kids, they're not going to last, first of all, because the body's going to get beat up. You see how some of us are limping and stuff? Minimal. But these days, these cats don't even last 4 or 5 years in the business. Why? Because they're getting taught by Joe Blow from the bar, don't know anything. When you want to be a professional wrestler, you got to do some research before you hire somebody to teach you this stuff. Because this is life stuff that you going out and putting your body on the line every night. You want to be able to go home safely so you can get up and go to work. Back in the day, we was on the road, 6, 7 days, 5, 6 days a week?
There were some at the beginning that in the early days that there was 30 days, and you know, and that's a lot of time away from home.
Exactly. Spent a lot of time living out of a bag in a hotel. I lost a lot of shoes. I remember left one of my work boots in there, patent leather work boot, left one of them. And it was funny as hell. I had this gimmick, and I had left one of my boots, my black boots, in the room, and I had to wear my patent leather boots with my freaking Mr. Hughes outfit. But it's online, it's on there. You can't miss it. You know, just imagine me in the ring with my outfit on, got red patent leather wrestling boots on. Something went wrong, you know. But as far as training, okay, my whole thing is this. When people come to see me from around the planet, that's where they come from, around the planet, because they know all the stars that are in place that I've trained that are out there now, making a good living. I got like 5 students in WWF right now. There's 3. There's 4 in AEW. There's 1 in NWA. Let me see, what else companies is there? I have students in all the major companies. The reason why they're there is because they got trained right. They got taught the fundamentals of professional wrestling. You can't do this stuff without learning the basic fundamentals of professional wrestling. And psychology has to be involved. If you don't have psychology, you can't do this. You're going to get crippled. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get beat down really bad because you're going to piss somebody off and they're going to tater you. And when you get tatered, honey, it don't feel great at all. Number one thing when I train people is safety, period, because you want the longevity there. I've been doing this stuff over 30-something years, and, you know, only thing I have is sore feet from being a big guy and then going from 400 pounds to 200 and something. So you got to get that skin off your feet because the callus hurts. And so, you know, I'm finally getting all that off. But back to the wrestling part, professional wrestling must have safety. Both parties have to protect one another. It's your career. It's your job. You can't just go out there and do anything to anybody because your family's there and you want to impress them. I'm not going to work with you. I'm going to tell you a quick story. This is a shoot story. Had a match. I was with ECW at the time, and I was booked to wrestle to Coach Scorpio. And was it a TV tape? It was a house show, but it was packed, sold out. Now, I've been knowing Scorpio at that time for years. We started out together in this business. He from Colorado, I'm from Kansas City. Well, anyway, Paulie booked us that night, right? Now, you would assume, being that we knew each other so good, that this is going to be a night off. We're going to have a good time. Well, anyway, I get in the ring with him, and I noticed that he's not selling my stuff. I'm going like, I give him a headbutt. That's one of my things, headbutt. You know, black guys got hard heads, that type of thing. He came from Rufus and some other brothers. And so I was using that. Punch I did real good, and a big boot I did real good. And he was not selling anything. So I learned a long time ago, roll out, make sure everything's cool, talk to the referee, communicate before you get back in there. I don't want no freaking abortion. And so the ref, come here, man. He comes out. I say, hey, tell Scorpio, if he don't work with me, I'm leaving. And you just count me out. It's going to be a DQ. So he jumps back up and he tells Scorpio what I told him. So I get back in and I try to go back to work so we can complete this match. And he was still acting a fool. And I was like, see ya. And I left. I got out the ring, walked back to the dressing room. He's going, where you going? Where? So I get back to the dressing room. Now, right at the gorilla there's Paulie Heyman. He's going, Curtis, what are you doing? No, go back. I'm saying, hey, dude, the guy don't want to work. I ain't going back. And I continually go straight back to the dressing room to where my spot was and sat down and start taking off my stuff. Now, what was I doing? What was I doing? What I was doing was I was letting him and the other workers know I'm business. I'm booked with you, man. Stop playing games. You don't want to work with me? I'll leave.
You want to have a match or not?
Exactly. That's exactly what I said. When he came back to the dressing room, he came back a little mouthy, but I was like, dude, you're my friend. I'm not going to fight you, okay? You know you did wrong. And after a while, he realized that, and he came and apologized. See, when I was in these big companies, I was professional. I always went to Vince. I always asked him, the agent told me that you wanted me to do this and this and that, right? And Vince would go, yeah, that, but not that. And then I'd go in the ring, I'd do my thing, and then when I got out, I went to Vince and said, is that what you wanted, boss? And he goes, yes. And I believe that's, I ain't gonna get ahead of myself, but back to the safety thing, that's real important to me when I train people, safety. That's number one, period.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And that's okay. Speaking of that, what advice, and anyone can answer this, so what advice would you have for a newcomer in the business?
Well, that's real easy. Number one, keep your mouth shut. Respect. I don't care if you think somebody told you to super kick and you're outside. First of all, you don't need to be outside the ring. It's a squared circle. You stay inside. Your first match. You're a wrestling match. You don't need to be outside. Listen to what I say and you'll go. I promise you, it's worked for me. You want to live your dream. Many, many times I wrestled at the Cap Center for Vince Sr. I'm driving home with Greg Valentine and Bob Backlund, which they worked with each other that night. I'm in the back seat. Nothing. I'm not saying, I'm just listening to what they say about the business, how they went over their match, which was really cool. And a funny thing about that whole thing was it was snowing and Greg pulls off into a snowbank. And this is when front wheel drive was new. And he's telling Bob and I, watch this. And he spins the front tire and it cuts right out of the snowbank. And I'm going, wow, that's pretty cool, but why'd you do that? But of course I'm not saying nothing. And Bob's just looking at him. Meanwhile, I don't know how they got away with this, but Greg's driving and Bob's in the passenger seat and they're drinking Miller Lights. Like, I'm going back and forth. I'm going, oh, he's supposed to be driving and I'm 21. Please don't crash. My career hasn't started. But the biggest thing was that bag of Doritos between them. It was a large bag of nacho cheese. And I was hungry. And I wanted them. And they kept on offering them to me. And I said, no, thank you. I wanted them so bad. I was so hungry because these guys wouldn't stop except to pee on the side of the road. So, but it didn't matter about those Doritos or the beer. I learned so much from them and Jimmy Valiant and Rufus R. Jones and Sonny Fargo, Johnny Weaver. I'll never forget it, Greenville, South Carolina. After his match, he's putting his dip back in his mouth and getting his clothes off to go in the shower. And he just looks at me. Remember, kid, it's not how much you make in this business. It's what you save. I never forget that either. And I would listen to him, be in the back seat of his Cadillac, Piper's on the right side. They're all just talking, asking me why I'm quiet. I said, just listening, and that's what I listened for a long, long time. And what I learned was two things. What to do properly, and then you're not going to do that, Barry. What to not do in the ring and out of the ring. And so far, it's worked for my career. I think it has. Maybe if I did the opposite, maybe I would have went further. Maybe I wouldn't have. You know what? The way I was raised and my type A personality, or whatever you want to call it, I'm not doing that. I'm a leader. I'm not a follower. And I'm a big believer in that. And if these guys, what they need to know is if they're going to be disrespectful and everything, why would you question a guy's ability that's worked for under contract for major companies? I forgot to even say last night that I wrestled for All Japan, another major company, and I adored that whole situation, way they break guys in, teach them respect, the way they work. I feel sorry for those young guys, I really do. I mean, sometimes they're just standing in the ring getting kicked in the face. I mean, teeth aren't broken, no concussions, paying dues once again. It's all about a respect thing, and that's my biggest pet peeve in today's business. There's many times I've been at WrestleCons and a guy will walk by and he knows who I am. He's not saying nothing. I laugh. I'm laughing at him. And probably one of the guys, I won't mention his name, 2 years ago, they brought him back. He still couldn't get over, and now he got hurt, and now he's out for probably a year. But he's the man, you know. See, it just, they don't get it. And I'm not going to explain. If I'm teaching you or I'm doing a seminar and it's a financial gain and that's what I'm supposed to do, fine. But for me to take you to side at the gym where I'm training or just on the side here and I'm talking to you and all of that, let's say 15, 20 minutes, an hour, and you just did this, you're not even doing what I'm saying, it's a waste of my time.
Yeah, I'm going to step in on that one.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
But, you know, you hit a few nails on the head on that one. You know, respect is my number one thing in this professional business, because when I go do these indie shows, okay, and you walk in and you put your bag in the dressing room, okay, and I'm looking at these young people to see who's going to respect me, who's going to respect their elders, you see? I'm not going to go to you. I'm not going to go to you, young person.
Right.
You see Mr. Hughes coming in the dressing room, put his bag down where he's going to park and get dressed. You better bring your tail over and say, hey, how you doing? My name's so-and-so. Nice to meet you.
Yep.
But if you don't do that, that further lets me know you got trained by a jabroni. Because he's supposed to teach you this stuff. I can promise you this, every student that I train, they respect their elders. Because I say, if you don't, somebody gonna tell me about it, and I'm gonna call you, and I'm gonna chew you out. I had a situation, I'm gonna tell you this story. I had a situation, one of my talented trainees, because I always send them to Booker T. Once you get ready, and you TV ready, I'll call Booker up, and I say, hey, I got another one for you. And he goes, send them to me. And they'll go to Booker T, and they'll be on Reality of Wrestling. Been doing it for years. I'm not going to send you to Booker because he trusts my word. He trusts what I send him. So I'm not just going to send you. You got to be ready to rock and roll. And so when I send these people, Booker knows that I'm sending him some talent. I'm not going to send you no garbage. That's not how I roll when I teach people, because I want these kids to try to make it, period. But to get there, you are going to have to respect on the way, because if you're planning on doing this for a long time, you're going to want people to like you, and you got to have respect in the business by the boys and the girls. If you want somebody to wrestle you the right way you want to get over, you got to respect them. You can't act like you're the superstar and you ain't even went nowhere yet, like a lot of these cats in the dressing room. You know, big macho, you know, coming, ain't been nowhere. Been in the business 6 months, think they big-time superstars. I hate that with a passion. And I don't even like using that word hate. But the business is a passion. I love this sport. I hate seeing young people kill it. Yep. Especially when they're doing all this stupid stuff that don't have anything to do with wrestling. You understand, like the guy that works with his penis thing. I hate that damn gimmick. That's not wrestling.
The what?
Go do porn, bro. Don't bring that garbage in this business. That's why when people don't go no more because people do stupid stuff like that, I say something about it in the dressing room. But yo, dude, you ain't a worker in my opinion. You're just a freak. Period.
I just want real quick, I learned this, I don't know, he maybe told me, I don't know how long ago, from Steve Kern. This is really cool. So I'm going into the dressing room, and I don't know who my opponent is. I don't know the guy, but I got to see if he could work. I got to see, could he hurt me? Can be compatible? What's going on? So it's an old trick, and Steve told me this, and it works, and it's real. So you go up to Johnny and say, "Hey, Johnny, how you doing? How long you been working?" And the kid goes, now, he's got a regular job. He's probably hasn't been trained right. This is all assumption. I could feel it. And 15 years. I'll go, you've been working 15 years? Like, where? And, like, you've been under... Okay, let me rephrase that. 15 years? How many matches in 15 years? 50? Case closed. So case closed. So if you come up to me, and I'll just use, I'm just going to use a number. Hey Barry, how long you been working? 27 years. How many matches have you had? 5,000. Oh, okay, you're good. But they think they're cool. I've been in the bit. No, you haven't. You haven't been on. You haven't been on a plane. You haven't been under contract. 15 years in the business? No. No, you haven't. You're thinking this or you watched it and you had 50 matches. I'm nervous. So Steve Kern taught me that, and I use that one. I like that. And I experience it even at the meet and greets. A guy will come up to me, an indie guy, and go, and he'll tell me, I don't question it because it's irrelevant. I've been in the business 20 years. And I don't know him. And I don't know everybody, but I know he's not been full-time for 20 years. And then the mannerisms, the body language, the look, the work ethic. I could read all of that. The mindset. I know, I'd be embarrassed to say that. So, and don't try to compete with me. I've earned my competing rights. Don't try that, because once again, that's disrespectful. Imagine going up to Jack Briscoe or something saying, well, I could do that drop kick. One of the best arm dragging drop kicks in the business to this day. And Steamboat. So I just wanted to say that.
Duke, do you have any advice for newcomers?
Excuse me. Aside from what these gentlemen just said about respect, which is the ultimate lesson, I often tell people, go to as many different places as you can and work early on, like small companies in different countries, learn different styles, learn how to call it in the ring. It's a dying art.
Bingo.
And, that's...
No scripts.
Yeah, my main piece of advice is go learn from as many different places and different styles as you can, because that's important to be well-rounded and, be able to call it in the ring and have psychology, like we always say. It's just an important factor. So that would be my advice.
Well, just to add, not that I've been in the ring, but lifelong around it, and it's listening to the guys that if they're listening to the crowd, and you guys know that, and if it's not working, that you're able to change it up. And and I feel that the younger ones, what do I do? Oh my God, well, I'll do 15 more of this, and kick punch, and and that's not it. You've lost them. So just to reiterate what you guys are, respect and psychology, and listen.
Thank you so much for sharing those amazing points. Before we close out today, I wanted to toss it to the audience if anyone has any questions.
I could sit here and listen for the next 12 hours.
As could I.
No matter what question I come up with isn't going to be better than the stories that y'all can tell. A huge thank you for coming out and doing this for all the fans.
Yes,
Definitely.
absolutely. Do any of you have questions for each other?
I do. I'll start with Mr. Hughes not remembering my classic Ron Simmons story with him because he was sleeping. That bothers me. I don't like being kayfabe by Duke the Dumpster Droese, even
Yeah,
though I
yeah.
love this guy to death.
Boom, boom, yeah, yeah.
And this is the most I've ever talked to Mike McGuirk in my life, because in the ring, in the locker room, or whenever I seen her, she didn't talk to me that much. I don't know if she was scared, intimidated, or maybe she thought she was a superstar.
I was terrified of you. I was terrified.
She knows the wrath of Barry Horowitz's background. But no, that's about it.
Well, you know, I got to say this because this is real important. Now, this young lady here, she has, I mean, I watch a lot of old videos of myself a lot, you know, because I really, as the time we did it, they didn't have the internet, you know, so you're playing catch up, right? Yeah, so I'd look at my old WWF stuff, but you would be the ring announcer. And not one time that you announced to me that you were great. I mean, it was perfect. I mean, every time you announced me going to that ring, it was perfect, you know? And so when you didn't do it for a while, you know, I was like, damn, what happened to her? What happened to McGuirk? Where did she go? Where'd she go? You know, I don't know if you went on vacation or they just found somebody new, you know, but I was
There's
kinda,
no vacations.
exactly. But let me tell you something. You were one of the best. I just wanted to tell you that. You were one of the best. And I'm shooting with that. And everybody that's up here, you know, great workers, man. I mean, I'm up here with some good people, some great professional wrestlers. And I'm trying to keep the old school alive so we can get those old school fans back in there, you know. And until I go to the dirt, that's what I'm going to do.
You know, real quick, part of that little thing about Mr. Hughes, what he was saying, is about, I'll see guys get trained, and let's just say oh yeah, I'm done in 6 months. Well, who trained you? And they're telling me this guy's name. I don't know this guy. Now, I'm not going to stereotype and say, well, he's never been nowhere, but I have to a little bit.
Yeah.
So my famous answer is, when they tell me that, or they tell me that some of these guys in billion-dollar companies at their little centers, if you will, are coaching, I'm calling it like it is. I'm not going to say everybody. That's when I step in and I say, well, who's coaching them?
Exactly.
Meaning, you're not a good coach.
I say the same thing.
And if you have a great teacher, and I think, like I said, I told you, in my eyes, Malenko's the best. If you have somebody of that caliber, that nature, and you're in a mindset of, this is what I'm doing the rest of my life, my dream, I'm paying my dues, I don't care if they're ribbing me, I don't care. You're not doing anything illegal, sexual favors, nothing like that. You're paying your dues. It will be worth it, and it has to work, unless you're a fool. You're a fool with drugs, you're a fool, something's wrong with you, you're not taking this serious, you're not listening, you think it's all gaga and ha-ha, you're not taking it serious. Going to a wrestling school, a proper one, is like going to college. It's a trait. It's a profession. It's a professional athlete.
That's how I look at it.
That's all.
You talk about Judy and Boris. What was it like working with Dean and watching what he became and what he's doing backstage and stuff now?
I don't know. I haven't spoke to him in a while. I don't know. I'm sure he's one of the head honchos back there. He should be. I mean, I know who's back there, and he's number one. So I really don't know. But when I was training with them, we're about the same age, or he's a year younger. He was still learning too, but he was still helping teach class. But it was mostly Boris Malenko, the head honcho. Then I would say second is Jody, and then third is Dean. Because he had to tune them up a couple times. You know, if he told them, basically he would just tell them, because they're one-liner guys. These guys are the master at one-line jokes. I mean, they're good on comebacks, both of them. And he'd get pissed sometimes when he's trying to teach class. He'd just tell them to shut up, and that would be the end of that. That'd be the end of that. Real quick, he'd shut that down. And nobody talked when Carl Gotch was talking. Good idea.
All right, Barry, I got a question for you.
No.
How did the gimmick come about in Florida, the 0 and 99, or more than that, that you did before you won the Florida Championship? How did that come about? How did they bring that to you, or, you know?
It was done, let's see. Let me see. Michael Hayes was there, but Dutch Mantell took over, and he says, I got this idea. And I guess they liked my attitude, my persona, my work. Let's do something with him instead of just using him to put guys over. And Dutch thought of it. What I liked is when you do an angle or you're involved in an angle or a program, Florida was known for, you get a year out of it without being boring. So you got to do it right. As far as I was told, Eddie Graham was the mastermind almost in the business of wrestling, like bigger than anybody, and the master at giving finishes. He's like Mount Rushmore material, Eddie Graham. There's others, but he's top 3 in my eyes. And, wow, he's just, I lost where I was at because I got on Eddie Graham. What did I say? 0 and 9. Oh, I'm sorry. So Dutch says to me, he presents this idea, and it goes on, and he says, that's what we're going to do. We're going to flash it on the bottom of the screen. Jack Hart, 0 and 10, 0 and 15, 0 and 20. Let me tell you something. And I'm a heel, and I'm using this, and I don't know whose idea
The
it was.
perfect heel for that.
Was the loaded glove, which nobody used, and I don't even know who gave me that idea. It was a great idea, but yeah, I just embraced it, and I ran with it. I mean, I just listened to different people promos with Gordon Soley and so forth, and the name Stretcher Jack Hart, I'm supposed to do a promo at the desk, and I said, I'm going for this. I'm just going to show some initiative here. I've been around a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. Well, you're going against Pistol Pez Watley. Now, if anybody knows his background, he's a great amateur wrestler from Chattanooga, Tennessee, University of Chattanooga, if I'm not mistaken, and good, real good. So I do this promo. Well, you're going against Pistol Pez, and I said, yes, I am. And I'm going to do something that Pez has never experienced. I'm going to stretch him. I'm going to stretch him big time. He'll go in that ring 5'10", and when he walks out, he'll be as tall as Black Jack Mulligan. And that was it. I just did something like that, and it stuck. Stretcher Jack Hart, and then I'd bring the rubber band to the ring, stretch it. You know, it had 2 meanings, the stretcher part. And nobody used, at that time, technical professional wrestling verbiage. I mean, it's a stretching, it's our term, see? So it's kind of cool. So I did it kind of as a rib and kind of deliberate, and it worked. So. Is that your answer there, Duke? Is that good enough?
Awesome, my friend. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I want to say that from all of us here, we appreciate all of you being here and being so gracious with your time with us today. To close out, I just wanted to ask one final question from each of you. If you could sum up your career in one word, what would it be?
Short.
Not long enough. if we could all go back and recapture those moments of the people that I love you guys, you know that. We've got that. But those that are before us, if you could capture those moments, those magical times, the things that they were saying to me, the things of being on the road and running down the road one night when they said, hey, can I jump in with you? Me and Gene. You think I didn't learn a lot just listening to Gene? I'm like, you drive, I'm listening. Same thing with Randy Savage. Just every moment I ever had, I was thankful, and for those that might be agnostic or anything else, I never opened a match where I didn't give thanks to the Lord. I don't know how that happened, that I was there and being placed, but I always said that I could never make it if I didn't at least, oh God, please let me get through this tonight, and everybody be safe. That was the thing, is that we didn't want anybody hurt, and I was so thankful for being there. I just wish I could recapture and just tell you it was never long enough. And to have this meeting, I'm pretty emotional cat here, so and it is, because it is emotional to me. It's my life. This was my life, and these wonderful people, and you, my God, thank you for being such a wonderful lady to bring us together. But it's about, again, we go right back down to the fact of respect, and I respect every one of them. I might not agree with them, and we don't have to, because in the end we always have come together as one, and that's how I learn. Is I don't want anybody thinking like me. God help them. And I'm glad that we are so different and that we come together, because we come together on the name of professional wrestling.
Well, one thing that I can say that sums it all up for me is blessed. That word I use a lot, because when I sit back and I look at my career, and then I look at all my former trainees' careers, further lets me know that the good Lord is working with me and through me to teach these people the knowledge that they need to make a good living at professional wrestling. And I pray every day for every last one of them that I train, even the ones that don't like me. I still pray for them to be blessed, to have great careers, because the thing that I look forward to as a trainer and a teacher of professional wrestling is to see them on that screen walking down the same aisles that I used to walk down in the WWF. And when I do see that, that further lets me know that the good Lord hears my prayers and he's blessing students. And that's the most number one thing that make me keep teaching young people, period. Because the end result is I want to see you on that screen. I want to see you experience the good life that this professional wrestling can give you. Because if you go to WWF, you're going to get paid if you're good. And I tell them all that, But the focus has got to be respect your elders, first of all, and learn psychology and the fundamentals of wrestling. I tell all these young kids that. If you don't want to listen to me, go listen to some jabroni and see how far you go. Into that conversation.
And one final word, Mr. Horowitz. How would you sum up your experience?
I just wish I'm grateful for my career. I wish it went a little bit longer. I think I was not even told properly in '97 that I think I got something. Well, if you're not on the TV board, the chalkboard, I guess you're not working. Yeah, but it's been 2 weeks since she gave me. Nobody would just come up to me. That's disrespectful right there. You wouldn't do that to your other so-called superstars. You'd haul them to the side or in Vince's office and this, and that. So that bothered me. And you could have repackaged me like you do everybody else 4 or 5 times, and everybody's seeing that. That's irrelevant in today's society and in pro wrestling. So, but am I disgruntled? No. I think I did well in my career because I made it. I had no help. Malenko's not calling people. My dad's not calling people. I don't have an uncle in this. I did it all on my own. And I'm grateful. And you know how many other guys, and I'm not putting these guys down, how many other guys would go, well, I'm just working indies. Heck, I wish I could have Horowitz's spot. I'll take that. See, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. And I just wish I was used a little bit better. And I wish it went a little bit longer. But I am still grateful because in professional wrestling, there's only one guarantee. There is no guarantee. And that's that.
Well, thank you so much again to each and every one of you for being up here with us today. And that concludes our session. Thank you.